Good morning. I am going to retire. And this year, if my kids don't give me any more debts. So, but, you know, and it's something that I have been thinking of for the last 5 years. And, you know, we're putting that money in TSP and we're, you know, everybody wanted to know why I was so happy at age 62. And they said, oh, you're happy. You're getting older, but you're really happy. I was like, yeah, I'm really happy. I'm finally eligible for Social Security. You know, so, you know, it's a time that we all look forward to. And there are many different factors. You know, some people want to work till they're 65 or 70, you know, or longer. And that's up to each person. But in addition to the money piece that, you know, really propels us or holds us back from retiring, there are all these other remarkable things about retirement, like, gee, what am I going to do when I have TIME time? I've decided it'll take me a year to clean my house. And that'll be my year of waiting. But I am going to introduce to you a marvelous person who contacted me, and his name is Kim Halladay. He is a PhD, and he's a recent resident to Battle Creek. And he's got real-world experience in personal coaching, community board service, and he is the former CEO and director of the West Michigan Community Mental Health and lived in Ludington for years. And when he and his wife retired, they decided to move from Ludington to Battle Creek. Now, I really have issues with that. But he's going to tell you about their retirement journey. He's active with the Area Agency on Aging here in Calhoun County. And he is on the finance board of Guardian Incorporated, which, as you know, works with many senior citizens. So I thank you for attending today. We have a sign-in sheet. It looks like it's back at the table. And without further ado, Dr. Kim Halladay, and he will be presenting 2 other workshops here about facets of retirement. So without further ado, Kim Halladay.
I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. And what we're going to do is talk about the factors that those who have retired, those who have reached that point in their life, tell us are... Does this work as well? Yeah. Oh, okay. Whichever one you prefer. Sure. The factors that... Is this working? Can you hear me? Maybe I need to turn it on, too.
Testing.
There you go. I met earlier today with Liberty, who helped set this up, and I told her that one of the hardest things about adjusting to retirement is not having the technical experts around when you're on your own, when there's a computer glitch, you're trying to get a PowerPoint presentation ready, and I guess I just demonstrated my lack of skill in that regard. What I hope to do today is to provide an overview of a discussion that will continue. I think we have sessions set in late May and also in June. And this is going to be an overview, and then we will dig a little bit more deeply into some of the areas that we talked about. My desire today is not to provide great wisdom in a magical solution to what lies ahead for you. Rather, I will consider this a successful experience if I somehow ignite the desire to have a conversation with yourself about this important part of your life that looms. And also, hopefully, will provide a bit of a focus regarding that conversation. Because I think it is important that you do think about this, understand the dynamics that are at play, and create the opportunity to turn this phase of your life into an exciting, positive phase phase of life, and hopefully we'll get some ideas as to how you might be able to do that. We're going to be talking about successful retirement and positive aging. The general focus is going to be on that period between approximately 55 and 70. That's when most people retire. That's when they make that transition to that next phase of their life. And ideally, those who are successful begin that transition, at least mentally, well before the age of 55. And if you haven't, it's never too late to be thinking about that. Retirement in positive aging is like it's like those areas of life that we know are important, but we never do much about, like long-term care insurance or getting wills together, whatever it may be. We know it's important, but we never get around to it. And hopefully this will encourage you to get around to having some of these discussions with yourself and those that are close to you. We're going to be moving along pretty quickly. This is more of a general introduction to some of the issues that are important to consider, and then we'll spend a little bit more time in the next sessions going down deeply. What I will be getting to, there are about 11 critical attributes that the research is telling us is important in successful retirement. We're going to go over what those are. I'm going to ask you, not formally in any way, but I'm going to encourage you to think about where am I at personally relative to each of those attributes, and if I'm not where I want to be, what am I going to do to get there? Because they're going to, these we'll discover are important. People have told us these things are important, and hopefully you'll find yourself just ready to do wonderfully in your preparation. You're probably not totally prepared. No one really is. No one's ever scored 100% on any of this. So, my background is, as Mary suggested, I have a background in social work. I did my experience with the federal government. I was a social work officer early in my professional career, so I was in the Army for 4 years, and 3 years actually. I don't know where that fourth year came from. 3 years, and I was stationed in Pennsylvania and down in Atlanta many years ago. So I do have some experience dealing with the environment that you're kind of working in. I know being active military is a little bit different than here. I grew up in Battle Creek, as did my wife. I'm a Harper Creek Beaver. Jeannie is a St. Philip grad, and as Mary mentioned, we moved back to Battle Creek after our career in Ludington. I have two sons. One is still in college and graduate school, and another is living in Vermont. And he's a teacher. So we have we have 3 grandkids. And by the way, I just got back. I'd recommend this. This is something that we just enjoyed. My wife and I spent 8 days with our 12-year-old granddaughter, just the 3 of us, on a trip, and she got to pick where. Within boundaries, and she picked the San Francisco area, and we went out and just had an incredible experience going to Alcatraz and to Amir Woods, and we went down to Monterey and did the thing. I mentioned that because that's the kind of thing that you can do when you're retired. If you think about it, if you have that opportunity, and it's just an incredible bonding experience. And we took our older, our 14-year-old grandson last year to Colorado and Chicago, and that was a great experience. I'll be 67 in May, so I'm one of the early baby boomers, and I've been past. I actually left my role as CMH director. It's been about 9 years ago, so I've had a chance to live that life a little bit after my formal career, the treadmill years that you guys are still experiencing. So I have that perspective. And another important perspective here is that my whole career was built around reacting. I was a mental health professional to issues that people have, trying to repair. And this whole subject is just kind of the flip side of that. The efforts the ideas that I might be able to impart are proactive, positive. Let's see the opportunities that are out there. Let's understand what can turn into a positive experience and try to create good outcomes rather than to try to fix a problem. So that's been one of the stimulating aspects of this topic as far as I'm concerned. I'm curious, in the introduction phase, why are you here? Are most of you getting close to retirement, or are you just vaguely thinking about it? Is there a general theme here? I know Hoyt said you're, 18 days away, right? Okay, that's pretty close. And can anybody beat that as far as time? Where does retirement, are others within a year? Is anybody else within a year? What about 5 years? Okay. What about 10 years? Okay, we're looking at the really smart people. Not that you guys are dumb or anything like that, but the sooner that we can prepare for this phase of life, the better, actually. And we sort of have messages that tell us that's not a good thing, that we're supposed to just focus on what the employer wants, and in that phase of your life, you just kind of pretend it's not there. But those who do spend time thinking about it and preparing, and there are a lot of ways to prepare that we'll go over, I think you really need to applaud. I've given you a handout. If you didn't pick it up, you can pick it up later, that will kind of summarize what I'm talking about here, that you can take back with you, so that if I make a point, there are you don't have to worry about notes or anything like that. Some of the intended takeaways that I have for this session, the first one is that I hope you'll walk away with an elevated commitment to yourself to better prepare for life beyond your primary employment career. That you will see this as a really important, hopefully, or you see it more important than you do coming in, as an important process that you need to go through to prepare for that next phase of life. So that would be one intended outcome. The second outcome would be to capture a better understanding of the critical attributes that are associated with successful retirement and positive aging. What are those attributes that people tell us are really important to own? One of them we're going to talk about very briefly is financial security. That's huge. We all know that you need money in the bank. That's one of the 11. We're not going to talk about that because we talk a lot about that as we prepare, and in many cases that's all we talk about. And it's much more complex than that. You can be sitting there with a tank full of gas without a clue where you're going, and that's not a good place to be. It's better than being there without any gas in the car. Granted, you need that, but without an understanding of those other dimensions, I think you find yourself in a place you don't want to be. So understanding what these attributes are, I think, are going to be important. And this has been a product of like several years that I've been working in this area, and there are many different constructs about what those are. The 11 that I have, I think, work well for me and hopefully for you. Another intended outcome is a few ideas regarding how to begin to or enhance your preparation for successful retirement. Hopefully you'll walk away with a little bit better sense of where I need to go from here if I want to have a successful retirement. Or if you're already on that path, maybe an idea or two that might enhance that journey that you need to be taking. Another one, and I talked just, and this is the final outcome, is that maybe there'll be a flicker of interest developed that will cause you to think about, what can I do to help my community better prepare for the older citizens that live in communities? I think one of the things you'll discover is that most communities aren't very well prepared. They have certain roles and expectations, and hopefully what you will come away with is maybe an idea, maybe I can help contribute. Part of the reason, and we'll talk real briefly about this, is that those of you, all of us here, are baby boomers. We're on the cutting edge of a wave that's huge. It's a tsunami of people, and to the extent that we can improve what's going on in our communities, we make it easier for those that are behind us. So we have a responsibility to ourselves and I think to others that follow. So maybe there'll be, I don't know specifically what that would be, but it may be, there may be some things that you can do. There are three ways that people approach retirement. I don't know what category you can fit in. One is the Peter Pan approach. That is denial. I'm always going to be young. I don't have to worry about that. It's not going to happen to me. That's probably not a real good approach. And there will be a lot of messages out there that will make you comfortable with the Peter Pan approach because aging is not a good thing. That's how it's viewed generally in our society. But that approach of denial leads usually to some pretty bad results. The other approach is this gleeful, I can't wait to get out of here. My life is going to be awesome. I'm not going to plan or anything. I'm just going to get out of here and then everything will be wonderful. That's not a good approach either. The in-between approach is one where you understand that this is going to happen and you try to approach it realistically. Make informed decisions about what is right for you, and go through a difficult process. So denial is a bad thing. Taking the attitude that it's going to work out no matter what I do is a bad thing. It's going to require a little bit, actually a lot of hard work and self-analysis, and that's where I hope that you will choose to go. And hopefully you'll have some better ideas of what that analysis and what you may need to be looking at. Part of the reason that this is so important is that let's look at some of the questions that you're going to have to answer as you move into that retirement phase. And I've listed about 10 or 12 questions, but I do this so that these are huge. These are really important questions that are going to be answered some way or another. You can allow others to answer them for you, or you can accept the fact that these are real issues that you're going to have to deal with and be part of the decision. On the handout that you will all grab, all of these are on there, all these questions, so you don't need to write them down unless you want. I mean, you can, certainly. But one of the questions is, what is my vision of life after I retire? Have you thought about it? Do you really have a good sense other than the federal centers in the rearview mirror? I mean, that's part of that future. But if it's like, what really is going to go on? Another question is, how do I want to spend my time in retirement? We think about golf, we think about sewing projects, but those kind of become not so wonderful shortly unless you think of the fact that you live 168 hours a week and 7 days in that week and 30 days in a month, etc. You need to be thinking in terms of how am I going to spend my time. Another question: where do I want to live? Do I want to live where I currently live? Do I want to move? These are decisions that you're going to be making. How will I need to adapt my house if I'm going to stay there long term? Another question is, what interest do I want to pursue? Many of us have not engaged in outside interests too much because we're too busy doing our job, taking care of our families, and the activities that we want to and thought we should be engaged in, we don't have time for. And now you have that time, or at least the option for having that time. What do I want to pursue? Do I want to continue work? Do I want to start a business? Will I be a volunteer? What are my plans? If you have some ideas about what you want to do, what are your plans? What specifically do you plan to do to realize your retirement dreams? That's part of the reason that those of you who get started earlier are at an advantage. And I have to admit, I did not handle this particularly well. I was sort of probably that Peter Pan person in terms of it would all work out. It always had. Every job I'd ever interviewed for, I received an offer. I just thought that retirement would work out the same way. And it's a little bit more complex, as we'll discover. Will I be able to financially support my retirement vision? It's another question you're going to have to ask. But what sometimes is that we fail to do is that we don't have the vision. We just focus on being financially prepared. For what? If you don't know what you're going to do, you may be under-preparing, or you may be over-preparing. And so it's you need to financially support it, but you also need that vision or that idea. This is an important one. How will I go about letting go of who I have been so that I can become who I hope to be? It's not a lot of mumbo-jumbo. Most of us, if you go to a social gathering, people eventually, as you talk, will ask, what do you do? And if you don't do that anymore, many of us are kind of stymied as to how to respond. You're going to become a new and different person. And if 10 years from now, someone asks you that question, you say, well, I used to work at the Federal Center and such a job. That's not a real good, you need to be more than what you used to be. And so are you going to be able to let go of that part of your life and move to a new phase of life? That's another important question. How will I recreate a sense of purpose and meaning that my job has provided over the years? Many of us define who we are and our purpose by what we do and the roles we play, the work that we do, or a role like a parent or a caregiver of other individuals. And when those roles change, if we haven't thought through what purpose we now have in life, it becomes a really difficult challenge for a lot of people. It's one that you're going to have to answer. And if, to the extent that you can be purposeful and planful in defining that, you're going to be in a better shape. Another question, how will I identify, or how will I create a new sense of identity after my primary career comes to an end? Who am I? You know, you have status, you have, you can identify, and if that goes away, your work career, then you have to come up with a new identity. It sounds kind of trite in a way until you're in that situation. When you go to, I know this was hard for me, the first few social engagements that I went to, trying to define, well, who am I now? Because you've always like, well, I'm the CMH director here in town, or I'm a teacher, or, you know, I'm a plumber, or whatever it is. Now you're something else. This is huge, this next one. How will retirement impact the relationship I have with my life partner? Are we in harmony regarding our hopes and dreams and plans for retirement life? Have we even talked to your life partner seriously about this next phase of life? Have you kind of planned together in terms of what that world would look like? Because you can create your own. First of all, most of us don't create anything, but when we do, we kind of think about what's going on in our own mind. But if you have a life partner that you plan, or are fortunate enough to be able to move forward into this phase with, then being on the same page is going to be critical, and having that difficult and challenging discussion is going to be important. How will other members of my family and friends fit into my retirement life, and how will I fit into their lives? Another important question that you're going to have to answer, and thinking before the fact rather than afterwards, I think is just really important. So those are the several questions and why I think this whole area is important. Those are going to get answered, every one of them. There are tons of other questions too that are out there. But I would propose that those that take the time to be planful and proactive are going to do much better in answering these questions. And again, going back to that Peter Pan approach, just pretending it's not going to happen doesn't help, or just naively stumbling into the next phase of your life isn't going to lead to good resolutions of these questions. It's going to take a little bit of work. I'm going to throw some numbers up here, and what I want to do, this is a memory test. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to look at this, then there'll be an exam. Just kidding. These are some numbers that I think are relevant to you about retirement. I'll go through these quickly, and I have them listed on the handout too. 70 million, that's the number of new retirees that will emerge in the United States in the next 15 years. 70 million people will be where, and you'll be among that group. 10,000, that's how many people retire every day on average in the United States. 1881, that's a date in history, and that was when Germany, when it was going through its consolidation effort to create the German nation, as part of that process, created a German version of a Social Security program, and through Bismarck was the chancellor then. One is the percent of people, and initially 70, later 65 was established as the retirement age. And the one represents the percent of Germans who were 65 and older at that time. It was designed for many reasons, but one is something that was very affordable. We can take care of 1% of our population. 13.5, that's the percent of Americans today who are 65 and older. So we developed this sense of retirement from the, the roots go back to the German system based on a premise that a very small percentage of the population is actually going to be at that 65 and older, when the reality is it's 13.5. 20 is the percentage of Americans who will be 65 and older in the year 2030. So that number is growing dramatically, and we have all kinds of issues associated with that. 40 million is the number of Americans who are currently 65 and older. 88.5 million are is the number of Americans who will be 65 and older in the year 2050. Just throwing out wild numbers here, but you get a sense of we're seeing a huge change in the demographics. 49.2, that was the average life expectancy in 1900. 61.5, the next one, that's the life expectancy when the Social Security system was put into place in the 30s here. 78 is the current life expectancy in the United States. You can see some of the issues that we have here. 83 plus is going to be the life expectancy of the average American in 25 years or so. We don't know that for a fact, but those are the projections that are out there. 60 is the average age that people retire now. Until the last 3 or 4 years, that was closer to 58. So the age change is because of the economic situation we've had has changed a little bit, but it's still 60. That means that there are 20 plus active years for most of us after retirement. That's a lot of time and a lot of potential opportunities for a really vibrant period of life. I want to digress just a little bit, because part of what's going on, we are engaged in a huge change in our society that we don't even realize is going on. And I'm going to look at a paradigm that we all have imprinted in our minds about how life ought to be. And that paradigm has been, until recent times, that life occurs in 3 stages. There's the springtime, which is that period probably to 21, 23, when we're sort of getting ready for life. We're growing physically and mentally, and we're preparing for our professional careers, which then prepares us for that long period of time from, say, 20 to 60, which is the summertime of our life. That's the active time. That's when we work and have families and whatever. And the assumption kind of built into this, because this is the way life unfolded until very recently, is that we moved then into the winter stage. Now, there are exceptions to this, obviously, that some people were very vibrant, but that was generally what happened, particularly when we were an agricultural society and when brawn was really more important than knowledge as far as being successful. And these messages are imprinted in your brain, in society's brain. We generally out there, you'll discover that once you're through your summer phase, that you've really kind of stumbled into that winter phase. The reality is that this is changing dramatically because of the numbers. And what we're moving to is what I call a new third age, the autumn phase, that most of us aren't wired to think about, but we really need to be thinking about it. It's that 20 to 30 years of active life that we have after the summer phase. And we need to recalibrate our own wiring and thinking in that regard, and in the community's wiring and thinking, because we're going to find that there's this important, incredible opportunity that exists before we get to true old age. And even that's moving. 80, 85 now before people, and sometimes beyond. People are vibrant into their 90s now. That's not uncommon. But this new third age, this age of approximately 60 to 85, is something that's kind of new, certainly with the numbers of people that fit there. And we're sort of, this group that sits here are pioneers, and we have some important stages. I'm going to come back to this because this is a kind of a systemic thing, paradigm thing that's going on that we need to be aware of. And the world is not ready for you to go out and join this autumn phase. It was ready for your spring. You had schools, you had job opportunities, and the second phase, we were ready for that too. We are marginally ready, have been historically, for this winter phase with our supported living arrangements and whatever, but the communities are not all that ready for this new third age, this autumn age. And I just want to leave that out there as something that we want to come back to a couple of times. And I want to give you an example of why this is hard to change. We are wired as a species. We are wired genetically, neurologically, biologically, socially, all kinds of ways. And I just want to prove that point to you simply. Everybody, clasp your hands. Put your hands together like that. I think everybody can handle this. How many of you have your left thumb on top? Oh my God. I've never been in a group like this. How many of you have your right thumb on top? Basically, evenly split. Okay, I want you to switch and put your, how does that feel? Feels kind of weird, doesn't it? Okay. There's no reason why it one way or the other. It's because we've wired ourselves to think in a certain way. Another example, if you can find a spot to take your right foot, that's the one if you're right-handed that you write with, and just go in a clockwise motion. Okay, just keep that up. Now, while you do that, try to draw the number 6 as you do that. Kind of weird, isn't it? And that's kind of trite, silly thing, but what it does tell us is that we are wired in many ways. We're talking now behaviorally, neurologically, to do things a certain way. We're wired socially with our expectations. We're wired culturally. And some of the wiring is mixed up, and it's in your head that's mixed up, that you're going to have to consciously deal with. If you just go with your instincts, you'll never be able to get that leg to keep moving, or in this case, we're talking about preparing for a life of 20 plus years of active engagement with after retirement, because things are not wired well for us to do that. But I just want to use that kind of silly example. What I want to do now is I'm going to go into these 11 critical attributes. And we are going to go through this rather quickly. What I hope we can do for those of you who are interested is when we come back is that I'm going to delve a little bit more deeply into each of these attributes. I'm also going to have, and I'll explain this a little bit, just for you to help me understand which of these are most important to you. And I will emphasize based on some feedback. I have my handout with the email address, so you can just tell me which ones might be more of interest. And I'll try to emphasize the ones that I get some feedback. The research that I've done, and it's scores of books and work with people, I've really boiled it down to 11 attributes that people who have retired and are happy with that phase of their life tell us these are the attributes that they tend to own. Nobody does well in all of these areas. That's unrealistic. But those who do well in these areas, it's a real positive as far as being successful. Most of these you will be familiar with. But I just think it's important to emphasize, because this is what the research is telling us. the first, and I don't necessarily have these in order of priority, but those of the people who report that they're doing well, they maintain a commitment to health and wellness. And this is really important. If you're not healthy, and sometimes no matter what you do, bad things happen to people, and it will happen to some of us. I mean, it's just inevitable. But there are some things that you can do to try to promote health and wellness. The people that do well see this as an important life task, and one that's very different, likely, than what you've been able to get away with up to this point. If you are residing in a 25-year-old body, that's very different than a 60-year-old body. And you may have to make some adaptations. For example, the things you eat, the habits that you have, the exercise in which you engage. There are some things that are going to need adjustment if you want to maintain your health and wellness. And this becomes particularly important for those of us who will encounter a disease or an illness or an injury that's going to require. But maintaining that focus and understanding that it's a little bit different now. In fact, it's a lot different maybe than it was when you're younger. That's critical. Without health and wellness, it's going to be challenging. A second characteristic, and I'm not going to spend much time on this, is financial security. Absolutely critical. But I look at financial security as the fuel, as I referenced earlier, that will take us on this journey. And without understanding a little bit more about what that journey is and what you intend and would like to do, it's kind of an incomplete attribute to own. I, by all means, have lots of money, but maybe you should be spending a lot of time looking at how I plan to live my life during this period. You may discover, and some people do, that they're over-preparing, that what they really want to do with their life, they don't need the resources that they think they need. We've had experiences where people have $5 million available, and it's still not enough. Another person with maybe $20,000 available, and that's plenty. It depends. I'm assuming there must be some retirement benefits coming as well, a pension or something. But it depends on the individual. Very critical, but see this as part of a bigger picture. This also speaks to the importance of starting as early as you can, because if you're 62, or in Hoyt's case, 18 days, if you think, oh, God, I just have money too, it's probably not a good time to realize that. We need to be thinking about this a little bit sooner. And all of these characteristics we're going to talk about, these attributes, the sooner that you can be all over them, the better in terms of being ready for that phase of your life. The next attribute that seems to be very important is to have a positive attitude about aging and future life satisfaction. For many of us, like, how can you get excited and happy about aging? That's part of the wiring that we deal with. We've been convinced since we're little that once you're beyond 25, you're pretty much washed up, maybe 30 for certain things. Maybe 40 for certain things, but certainly by the time you're in your 60s or 70s, you're a basket case. Well, the people that somehow are able to see this as a positive, that there are things that are possible now that weren't possible before, the opportunity to pursue some passions that had to lie dormant because of other life obligations, the chance to maybe not have an alarm clock go off every morning, the chance to maybe spend some time with people you love in greater intensity than you did before. What people are able to do is they look at the positives and they see that there are things that are good. And one of the attributes that tends to be common is that there's a positive attitude about aging and future life satisfaction. But this is going to take some work for many of us because we're so inclined to think otherwise, that this isn't a good phase of my life. The next one is the ability to replace work functions. What does that mean? It means a lot. One of the things that happens with work is many of us own our identity. We own our life purpose is associated with work. The structure of the day is associated with work. Our social connectedness is associated with work. A lot of things that are really critical. Our source of financial security is associated with work. When work goes away, and eventually it will for all of us, the people that do better in retirement are those who are able to replace these life functions, to create a new sense of personal identity, personal utility, purpose. The individuals that are able to establish a new daily structure, a routine. The people that are able to find new sources of social supports. You can see where I'm going with this. Don't discount this. This is huge. This is really huge, and a lot of people really struggle with this. And you're going to struggle no matter what, to a certain degree. But to the extent that you can be aware of what those critical functions are that work supplied, you can begin to search for other sources. Had a chat with Mary earlier about some of the things that are important in her life, like the social networks that she's created that will live beyond her work life. Others of you may have hobbies that you can pursue that will create a new sense of identity. But there are a lot of things that work takes care of for us that we don't even think about, that we're going to be on our own. Being more self-directed. A lot of us just come to work and, what do I do today, boss, kind of a mentality. Well, when there isn't a boss to tell you what to do, or a structure or a job description, and you're going to have to create your own, for a lot of people that's a really difficult transition. So those people that can replace work functions do better in retirement, and they age more positively. This is huge, and I referenced it early. Those that do well in retirement, if they are in a situation in their life where there is a life partner, that they are able to maintain or recreate harmony and compatibility with that life partner. You find yourself, or you create a way to be on that same page. And this is really in my clinical work. And my background, I mentioned, is social work. I did a lot of counseling over the years. The two areas where couples really struggled were at the empty nest period, when that relationship had to be redefined because that other individual, that child, was no longer there, was a very difficult transition. Retirement is another really difficult transition. A lot of times people wake up and realize, I don't know this person that's lying next to me. We've been so busy with our lives that we really haven't paid attention to each other and how we've evolved and what's important. And so finding this ability, this compatibility is critical, because you're going to have to make a lot of huge decisions together, like big decisions. Where are we going to live? How much independence are we going to give to each other? You have little decisions that are critical that become big if you don't deal with them, like how are we going to handle household chores 24/7? We had it worked out before, but now we're together all the time, and who's going to do what, and what are the standards for what those jobs are, and those kinds of issues are really critical. So finding and maintaining and recreating compatibility with one's life partner is important. And part of this I want to also emphasize is one of the realities of getting older is people die, candidly. And while we need to be on the same page with our critical, our life partner, we also need to accept the fact that may not be our fate forever. And we don't want to be so bound together as we approach this phase of life that we can't imagine that there would be life without that other person. I always remember when this first hit me, this was about, thank God it was a long time ago, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, I think it was about 1996, and it was very serious, and she ended up with surgery, stem cell transplants, all kinds of stuff. It was not a good situation. It occurred to us then that our lives had been so involved with our work and our kids that we were each other's life socially. And for us, I guess for me, to imagine being alone was traumatic because I hadn't planned that. We hadn't thought about that possibility. I remember thinking how there's a phase in your life when you look at young people getting started in life and you're maybe a little tinge of jealousy, because those were good times for many of us. I remember almost immediately looking at an older couple together thinking that generated some strong feelings, because we thought maybe we would never enjoy that phase of our life. So I don't want to be morbid, but when you plan and work together, keep that possibility in mind too, so that you don't get so tied up into each other that reality you can't face that reality. And that's just being respectful of each other. And so this is an important one. Another thing that people tell us is that they need deeply rewarding interpersonal relationships and social support systems. That's critical. We're social creatures, and we need to find ways to engage in this, whether that's through your church, through whatever activity. Again, many of us enjoyed that through our work. Sometimes we didn't enjoy it because some of the people we worked with weren't perfect in our minds, or we probably weren't perfect in their minds either. But we did have social support systems. And when that's missing, finding these are going to be critical in retirement. Another one is the ability to be flexible and resilient and adaptable. Being that old curmudgeon who, this is the way it's going to be, I'm never going to change. Those people don't do well. It's the people that are, hey, I'm going to check out this Facebook thing or Twitter or look at things that are happening. Let's learn a little bit more about the Ukrainian situation. I'm just giving examples to stay in touch with what's going on in the world and being willing to make some adjustments. You have belief systems, certainly, but maybe evidence is going to point you in another direction. Allow that to happen. Just because that's what you learned back in 63 or 75 doesn't mean it's still true. The people that are able to be flexible, resilient, and adaptable to an ever-evolving world that we live in do better in retirement. Another one, ability to engage in rewarding, enjoyable, and re-energizing leisure activities. Well, many of us think, well, that's what retirement is going to be, one big leisure activity. I'm going to golf or whatever. No, that's part of it. But we need to be thinking that we need to be, leisure requires us to kind of regroup and to get away from the routine. And if the routine is 24/7 just messing around, that will wear out real quickly. And of people who thought that they would golf 8 days a week or whatever they might do, get tired of that real quickly because they haven't really put into balance that you need to get away from what you do every day and do something different to reinvigorate. So the people that do well in retirement are able to find activities so that they can regroup. And what that means to you is going to vary. Some people think that another problem that emerges with some folks is, well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get into mountain climbing finally, because that's what I've always wanted to do. And you may discover that I'm not interested in that anymore, or I may discover that I can't do that anymore. So as you think about your leisure activities, you need to bring that in. You need to discover your passions, but you also need to be up to date with what it is that you want to do now, because it may have changed, or what you can do now, because that may have changed as well. But people who do well tell us that this is an important part to find re-energizing leisure activities. And I've kind of referenced this before, but I want to hit it hard. Lifelong learning. Back to wiring. Our wiring is that it's during that spring phase of life that we get all the learning, and after that we just sort of float. Maybe there'll be opportunities like this or your continuing ed from time to time. But once I have my degrees or whatever, I'm done. Well, the people that do well continue in retirement, continue to learn. And we have incredible tools now with the internet and with libraries we've had for a long time, but with community college, adult learning opportunities, in so many small ways. Keeping active, trying to continue to learn and grow and get smarter regarding the world that you live in and the world that's emerging is really, really important. Too many people go into a cave, and I want to turn the lights off in 2014, and that's the way it's always going to be. Some of us turned it off in 1980 and think that's always the way it ought to be too. But to the extent you turn the lights off, you're making it harder to be successful as you move forward in life. This is important as well, to possess a deep personal awareness of who you are as a person. What are your values? What is important to you, and then to live your life accordingly. For a number of years, I taught a course for Central Michigan University on personal mental health, and one of the most memorable parts of this is through some process. I don't remember how we got there. We had an exercise in personal mental health and trying to define what's important in my life. And the exercise was I had the students write a eulogy. At some future point, we made it like 95 or 100, something like that, gave everybody a long life, to have a eulogy that they would write about themselves and to tell the audience at the funeral or the congregation what it is that you would like someone to say about you. 125, 150 times I did this. I never had one eulogy that referenced anything material. I never had one that talked about possessions or trips that I took or money that I had in the bank. When it got right down to asking the fundamental question of what's really important in your life and what would you like to have others think of you at this moment, it was all about relationships with other people. It was about it was hopeful that those that were close to them, family members and friends, would have had deep personal bonding with that individual. For others, the other major area was that with their spiritual life, that they lived their life through actions, not just saying I believe something, that they actually lived their life and consistent with their beliefs. And that to me was always a stunning thing, because it really got right to the core of what's important. What's my purpose in life? And so often we get confused by that because we think of big things when the really important things are probably sitting in the living room with you or a phone call away or whatever. And I say that because a lot of you folks are professional people, and you get this mindset that to do something important, a purpose, it has to be big. It doesn't have to be big. It can be little. It can be waking up in the morning and thinking, what can I do to make the life of the person I love today just a little bit better than it would have been had I not done whatever it is. Maybe you did the dishes without being hounded, or you did something. That's an important purpose that you can have. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be improving the quality of life. Fast forward to that eulogy, what you'll want to have people think is that I cared about other people, people cared about me, I took the time to be with them. I was busy, but I always found time. Those are the important things. So when you think of purpose, don't think big things like I have to, save democracy for Western civilization, whatever. But you do have to rethink about what your purpose is. Most of us haven't done this. We've let events and our jobs do it for us. But I think it's really important part of what is related to success. The final one is for purpose. For persons who are seeking an encore career, they want to keep working, and that's going to be true for many of us. The importance of owning currently relevant employability skills, recognizing that, you got your job you have now 30 years ago. maybe things have changed a little bit out there. Maybe that old resume that you used doesn't quite cut it, like LinkedIn or other approaches to how you find a job. Or maybe there's some technical skills that you need to own that you don't own. If going into the workforce is important to you, understand what those demands are and try to build your skills accordingly for those who do choose. And most people probably will, to a certain degree, want to keep doing something along these lines. But to be successful, you may have to adapt the way you've approached your work over the years. Okay. Good news, I'm getting near the end here. So, the next area I want to just talk about is action steps that you can take. I want to give you something tangible, and again, these are in the handout. These are pretty simple. One is to bring the issue of aging and transitioning to life after retirement into the daylight of being a life reality you are going to experience. You personally are going to experience. This isn't something that someone else is going to have to deal with. You're going to have to deal with it. And just that realization, I think, is really the first step that you need to take. Most of us are in that Peter Pan mindset that getting old is what happens to other people. Well, it's going to happen to everybody eventually, at least as far as we know it is. So bringing it into consciousness. Another thing you can do is we started today, be informed about what are the attributes that are critical to success at that phase of life. What are they that it's important? The financial security, the health and wellness, finding harmony with a life partner. What are those issues that are important? And becoming knowledgeable. And the next one is to then be honest with yourself. Where am I? You know, how well prepared are we, my spouse and I, for this? Are there some changes I need to make in my habits and my exercise regimen or lack thereof, or eating habit? Is to look at your life in these different attributes and do an assessment. And if there's some things that need adjustment, if you want to have a successful retirement and age positively, those are the things you're going to have to do. It won't happen without some effort. Don't be afraid to ask assistance in the area, let's say that you want an Encore Career. Well, maybe you need to talk with some people about maybe there's a SCORE program in our area. There are other resources that you can turn to for advice about how do I start a business. Or maybe for some of you it's going to be, we have some issues that we need to work on together, my spouse and I, if we're going to do well at this phase of our life, or whatever. Seeking assistance is okay. It really is, because you're talking 20, 25, 30 years of your life. For some folks, that's more time than you actually worked in your lifetime. So this is not an inconsequential period. This is important, too, about getting ready, and that is to dare to dream about the possibilities that lie ahead. This can be like reliving, in some ways, that excitement that you had post-high school, post-college, or during that period. What am I going to be when I grow up? Well, you have a chance to maybe start over in some ways, to do some things that you always wanted to do but never got around to, or maybe some things that you've never thought about that are now possible. Dare to dream. If you can do that, that's going to be really important. I've already mentioned this too. We have some work to do at the community level. I don't know exactly what that is, but if you see opportunities to make some, I have some ideas that maybe we'll kick around in one of the upcoming sessions. But we need to have a community that's more attuned to the fact that we have this resource of people. And not to take care of us better, but I think also for us to be involved and to be engaged in life and to own some responsibilities to make life. Look at I can't imagine the talent that's right there, that 5 years or so will be moved out into that retirement phase. Don't throw that away. The community needs that talent. And it may not be the talent related to the job you do. It could be other things that you haven't been able to do. It could be reading to kids. It could be volunteering. It could, who knows? Don't just let it atrophy. But we have to find ways to make it easier to do. Another thing that, action steps, and I think to seek another action step is to seek an understanding at a deeply personal level that the two most daunting obstacles to aging well and adjusting to life after retirement are, one, not letting go of the past as one ages. Most people, this is number one, I think, is that we don't let ourselves move on to that next phase. Think of Tarzan if he didn't let go of the rope. Okay? That's not a good picture. You're going to have to let go of the rope and move on to that next phase. So not letting go of who you were so that you can become who you wish to become is really important. The other thing that is the other major obstacle is allowing the outdated wiring in your mind to tell you what life should be like as an older adult, thus undermining the possibilities. We carry these messages that old is bad, that you really should be like 22, and beyond that you start to kind of fall. No, we need to deal with those messages to see the possibilities that are there. But that wiring is going to be very hard, just like to get that foot moving in the wrong direction or the hand clasp, things that we're wired to, and we are wired socially. So those are important things that you need to work on. You can start working on that right away. Questions and comments. And I have a few closing things, but I just wanted, if there are any, they really didn't allow for a whole lot of that, but are there any reactions or questions right now that I can respond to? Yeah. Right.
I have found myself going through essentially that same list for the past 2 years. And again, I've only got about 2.5 weeks around here. It's amazing. So I guess I'm not the only one that's thinking that way.
Right.
That's pretty much par for the course of what you should be thinking about.
Absolutely. And the fact that you have been thinking about it puts you at a most of us will wait right to the last moment. Then you start realizing it's like having a huge fish on or something like that. You don't have a net large enough to land it. Now what do I do with this? But the fact that you have been thinking about it, and hopefully by being reminded of some of the things that are really important, it might get you focused a little bit better. Everybody's story is going to be different. Maybe everybody in this room who has a significant other, a partner, you've got it all worked out. Maybe some of you don't, and that's an area where you need to work, or one of the other areas. Maybe some of us need to deal with healthcare issues, or maybe some of us need to figure out a way to restructure the day that we just have allowed the job to create. So we all have different issues, but it's trying to identify what are my issues and what am I going to do about it. So. Yeah, Mary.
Kim, if you'd be kind enough to say what we're going to do in the next upcoming session, and if you please make sure you sign in, because I can send you the PowerPoint on email, and I can send to you electronically the handouts for the next classes. So there'll be 2 more.
Let me go into what we'll be doing at the next sessions is we're going to go back to those 11 attributes, and we're going to delve into those a little bit more deeply and talk about some of the ways that you can prepare. Like, for example, there are a great little book on couples in retirement, and we'll talk about the 10 critical questions that spouses need to ask each other and deal with. And we'll do that in a variety. Not the financial area, because that would be a huge mistake for you to take any financial advice from me. But maybe in some of the other areas we might be able to give you some insight. So we're going to go through those 11 characteristics. The handout that I have has those identified, and which leads me to my homework assignment. First of all, the next class I think is on May 28th, the Wednesday, and then the other one is on the 25th of June. What I'm asking you to do by the 28th, and this will take 5 minutes, is to look through that list of those 11 characteristics or attributes, and help me know which ones might be more helpful to talk about next time. And I don't want you to reveal, I can't stand my husband or anything like that. But if and that, so I don't. It's a little awkward because you may feel like you might be revealing your issues. Well, if you have that issue, I can guarantee you some other people do as well. So I'm asking you to just let me know, are there some that you want me to hammer on a little bit harder than the others? The other assignment would be, I want you to come up, and this is listed again on the handout. Identify 5 characteristics possessed by people you know personally who have transitioned well into retirement and are aging properly. People you know in your life that are doing well in retirement. What are they doing? Why are they retiring well as opposed to people that may not be? I'm just asking you to come up with 5, and they can be from the same person, they can be from different person. What we're going to discover is there are great role models out there, people that are out there doing this well, and we need to learn from them what they're doing. So if you can do that for me, that would be, just bring that to class, and we'll integrate that in. What I wanted to do, I want to close with, I have 5 quotes here that I think are relevant, and again, those are on the handouts. Success in retirement is about moving towards something, not away from something. And if you don't know what you're moving towards, you have work to do if you desire a successful retirement. Retirement is more than just abandoning ship, although that can be part of it too. I understand that. But if you don't know where you're swimming, using that metaphor, then you may have a problem. So we need to know where we're headed. Another quote, it's impossible to move to the next chapter in life if you keep rereading the last chapter. And we tend to do this. We do it as parents, for example. We're still thinking our kid's 7 and he's a graduate student, and we need to move on. And one of this quote I think speaks for itself. We need to move on to the next chapter, and the only way you can do that is to quit reading the last chapter. Another quote, I have 3 more. The most daunting barrier to aging well very likely lies within the caverns of your own mind. If you are going to have a problem aging well and retiring successfully, the major problem you're going to have is you. And getting beyond that wiring, that misunderstanding, that reluctance to get active and doing what you need to do, you're going to be your biggest barrier. If you can get over you, if you can get you on your side, I think you've made huge progress towards that goal of aging successfully. 2 more quotes. If you are what you used to be, you have work to do if you want to create a successful retirement. That's sort of like still living in the past. And we need to move to that next phase. You're going to have to, it's an opportunity to redefine who you are. It's exciting, which means, though, you have to kind of be beyond what you were and to become, that'll always be part of you, but you need to be in context of what you can be. And this is the last one. With the new retirement and positive aging norms that are unfolding, an astonishing prospect is emerging. It's not too late to become what you could have been. Now, if you wanted to be an Olympic swimmer, that maybe it's too late for that. There are a few things that we can't do, but with knowledge being the key today, not brawn and muscle, most of what you could have been, you can still be if you free yourself to become that. And it's going to be hard work, but I really think it is possible. It really is. So next time we'll be digging into those 11 characteristics more deeply and hopefully providing some insights as to how we might be able to turn those attributes into something that you personally own, or own it in a better way than you do currently. So, yeah, okay, thank you.